Thank you for preparing for Rosh Hashanah with me by doing a soul accounting. As we continue with our theme of self-love, today we're going to focus on personal boundaries and how that is a really important aspect of how we're able to love ourselves. So get your notebook and get a pen or pencil and join me in thinking about personal boundaries. I thought of an Easter Sunday where, as a rabbi, I had a particularly packed day that actually had very little to do with Easter. I had the opportunity to do a baby naming and bless this beautiful child. And sadly, there were a couple people in the hospital, and it was a packed day. And in the middle of this day, a good friend of mine called me up and was very sick. He had the flu. And in speaking with him, he asked, because it was Easter, the only thing that he really wanted was an Easter ham. And he asked me if I would go and pick him up a ham. Well, you can imagine that that made me uncomfortable, but he was my friend and he was sick. But more importantly, I actually had such a busy day that when I stopped at the grocery store in between visiting two people in the hospital and going to his house, I began to get frustrated. And in looking for a ham on Easter, which was actually a little bit of a challenging thing. I'd never had to do this before as someone who doesn't partake in the pig. I had a hard time finding a ham that would be suitable. And then, of course, I was uncomfortable about who I might run into. And sure enough, there was somebody from the larger Jewish community who saw me as I was getting the ham and putting it in my cart. And as I drove to my friend, I felt so rushed and so frustrated, and I had to make my way back to the hospital to visit a congregant who was ill. By the end of the day, I was stressed out, and I realized that the resentment that I had about even being asked was challenging. And the truth is, as I look over my own choices, I was really the one responsible. I could have very easily said no. It was a busy day. It was a ham. There were so many opportunities for me to say no, I'm not comfortable. But instead, I was trained to say yes. During this time of year, there's a book that we read to children called The Hardest Word. And thinking about Yom Kippur, this children's book said that the hardest word is the word sorry. I actually think that for many of us, the hardest word is really no. And we want to be good people. We think of ourselves that way. But I think about a law around tzedakah, around giving charity, where we are told very explicitly not to give more than we have. And even more pointedly, not to give to the point where we might actually put our own selves in financial jeopardy. And I think about this law, and I think about understanding the boundaries of our desire to be seen as good people and wanting to do mitzvot, wanting to do kind deeds for others, but that when we overextend, whether it is through financial giving, whether it's through emotional presence, whether it's through doing favors and with time, if we overextend, we create problems for the other person and for ourselves. And so what I'd like you to do is think about how you've honored your boundaries this year, and think about one area, whether it's a relationship or a person, where you would like to bring a little bit more curiosity and a little bit more attention to, and how you might strategize about minding your boundaries a little bit better. And once you do this, you'll have the opportunity to kind of continue to build so that saying no actually is one of the healthiest choices and not a hard one. Thank you.